Hey guys, Coach Highway from GameLeap here, and in today's video I will be breaking down the best heroes for solo carrying in Overwatch 2. As per usual, we'll go role by role, starting first with the tank role. Starting with the D tier is going to be Doomfist. If you saw the Overwatch heroes tier list I made, you may be surprised to see I've put Doom at D tier on this one. It's important to note that while I think Doom is a hero with a lot of potential, he needs a lot of follow-up and help from his team to be really strong. Since this is a solo carry tier list, I have put Doom at the bottom D tier. He may be able to get a pick or two in the perfect situations, or be able to knock an entire team off the map, but truly these times are few and far in between, especially compared to the other tanks. He just doesn't pack enough punch nor has enough self-sustain to be able to do it all himself. Moving up to the C tier, we have Roadhog. Roadhog has a decent amount of self-sustain, but with the current meta of the game favoring high damage mobile DPSs who can all deal damage outside of Roadhog's hook range, coupled with the power levels of all of Roadhog's counters, he just doesn't have the potential to solo carry that the other tanks do. You need your team to really back you up and pour resources into you to close the distances. Our next tank on the C tier will be Junker Queen. You'll find that Junker Queen has essentially all the same issues as Roadhog, but with a little bit more mobility for herself. This still doesn't make her too much better because unlike Roadhog, her self-sustain is pretty small and her damage is all close range based. Many of the heroes that counter Roadhog counter JQ just as hard, which means she more or less falls into the same space that he does. The final tank on our C tier is going to be Reinhardt. Rein can be a fantastic tank when played well, however he is undeniably team dependent. Not having a Lucio for example makes Rein incredibly difficult to play. He has very slow movement when he shields and no team to back it up makes it exceedingly difficult for him to close distance. He also requires a steady stream of heals since he has no self-healing or sustain outside of his shield. Moving on to our B tier, we have Orisa. Orisa is a pretty high self-sustain hero. She is great at separating targets with her boops and stuns and has good damage to follow up on her own pressure. Her ultimate can leave some to be desired when you don't have nano or you pull the enemy team off a map, but she overall is an excellent solo carry hero. The only reason she isn't higher is due to the power of her counters in the current state of the game. Before we continue on the B tier, are you enjoying this video so far? If so, please consider supporting by liking and subscribing and let me know what you think. Thank you so much, let's get back to it. Next on our B tier list is Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball's sustain comes from his mobility and his shield health. With his slam and his guns, he can be an effective assassin against various DPSs who tend to play more solo. This can allow him to get a steady source of picks depending on the enemy team comp. However, his weaknesses come from the relative ease in which he is countered in Overwatch 2. Sombra is very powerful, as is Zen, and both can make Wrecking Ball's day a really bad time. His damage isn't usually enough to kill through support pockets, so he needs a team to back him up when he is going in against these hard counter comps. This all together puts him at B tier. The final B tier pick is Winston. Winston is a great tank overall, but the thing he lacks is self-sustain. If you're playing with healers who don't support your dives, you won't be able to stay in for very long, and your damage is not significant enough to get value quickly. He requires follow-up and support, but he's good at picking off isolated targets, and his ultimate can also allow him to go really deep into the enemy backline while alone. His carry potential is big if you're a good monkey, but due to the lack of sustain, he falls just short of the A tier. The next tier, of course, is the A tier, and the only tank I put in it is Sigma. Between his shield, his kinetic grasp to not only mitigate damage but also turn it into health for himself, his stun for peel, and his significant range damage, Sigma is an excellent and sturdy tank. His ultimate is also very strong and can be a consistent fight winner or used to counter enemy ults like a nano boosted tank or Dragon Blade. His solo carry potential is strong. The only reason he isn't higher is his very present lack of mobility, making him susceptible to being isolated and pressured out and making it difficult to chase down targets. Moving on into the S tier, and our first S tier tank is D.Va. D.Va is really strong this season. Her matrix gives her an immense amount of damage mitigation, and her damage makes her very lethal to just about any enemy. She has a lot of mobility, lots of health, and she can easily avoid any dangers to herself as long as she is aware. The one thing she lacks overall, however, is any form of self-healing, and due to her large headshot hitbox and large hitbox altogether, this can prove to be a problem if you find yourself out of position. She's absolutely an S tier if you're an excellent D.Va, but it is super possible for you to end up feeding on her and feel as though she is terrible. The final tank on the list is Zarya. Zarya is pretty easily the best solo carry tank right now. For starters, her bubbles provide a ton of additional toughness to either herself or any teammates who are in need of the boost, such as a Blade and Genji. Her damage when she is charged is absolutely ridiculous, able to beat out pretty much any DPS in a 1v1, especially when she has bubbles for herself. Her ultimate is solid and an easy fight winner in pretty much any situation. Finally, since half of her HP is shield health, you can actually regenerate your own HP just by hiding for a little bit and avoiding damage. There's not many downsides to Zarya right now aside from her mobility, which can make dealing with long range heroes like Widowmaker very annoying. She can even take high grounds by using her right click to boost herself up. If you want a straightforward tank to solo carry games, check out Zarya and our guide on her. Moving on to the next role, we have the chunkiest role of them all, DPS. As per usual, I'm going to be a little bit more rapid fire with DPS since there's just so many of them to go through. Before we get into it, be sure to check out our website launching this month where we are going to be posting far more detailed step-by-step guides on how to rapidly improve at your heroes. You can pre-order your membership to get half off right away by following this link right here. Moving on to our D tier is Bastion. To be frank with you, no offense offense to Bastion mains, he's pretty terrible right now. His hitbox just makes him too big to avoid damage, and his abilities are all pretty bad to boot, including his ultimate. He needs a team to work around him in order to get value due to his low mobility, and since his damage is consistent rather than bursty, he loses pretty handily to characters like Hanzo. Moving on to the C tier, our first character is Symmetra. Sim is also lacking a few different things as a character. The issue with her is her lack of mobility and the lack of one-shot potential. She needs space and pressure from a team to be able to get close and charge her left click or effectively stay in the fight long enough to secure kills without being killed first. The second DPS on our C tier is going to be Pharah. Pharah really becomes exponentially stronger with a Mercy to follow her around in the air. With a Mercy, Pharah can easily be an A tier pick for carrying due to her high damage coming from a difficult to contest part of the map combined with her fast building ultimate that regularly secures picks. However, since this is a solo tier list, she is going to be C tier due to her lack of sustain in the air and the need for a support to keep her alive and going. Going into the B tier, our first DPS is going to be Mei. This may get some surprise from people, but I think that Mei just doesn't effectively carry like she did in Overwatch 1. With the lack of left click freeze and the lack of mobility combined with the one tank, she also seems to need some team assistance to get a steady flow of picks. The map can definitely push Mei up to higher tiers since her wall can be extremely strong, but for the overall lack of versatility, I'm keeping her in the B tier for solo carry potential. Next up is Reaper. Reaper in Overwatch 2 has proven to be a pretty strong pick. The reduction in CC allows for him to stay close fighting enemies for longer without needing to use his Wraith. His teleport is fairly quiet and can lead to good flanks on backliners, and his high close range damage makes him one of the most effective tank busting DPSs. However, he lacks range, and if he has something like Matrix or Bubbles to bust through, his self-sustain is not great, and he can be forced out of positions with relative ease. His ultimate is also pretty great in Overwatch 2, so he is a good B tier hero. Next up on our B tier is going to be Torbjorn. Torb can be an effective dueler and has both close and long range options for fighting. His turret can help peel off weak flankers and provide a little bit of extra pressure in a fight. His ultimate leaves a lot to be desired due to the high mobility and reduced tank in Overwatch 2, but the rest of his kit makes up for it. The only reason I don't put him higher is because he is downright easy to hit, and that can make it difficult for him to fight hit scans effectively. Next on the B tier is going to be Junkrat. Junkrat has solid damage output, has pick potential, good mobility, and a strong ultimate. However, he has very little self-sustain and is not the best at dueling targets who get the drop on him. This requires him to have his teammate distractions in space for him so that he can get his maximum value. However, he can cause a lot of damage with an even okay team. He stays in the B tier. The final DPS on the B tier is going to be Cassidy. Cassidy's biggest weakness is his lack of mobility. He does a fair bit of damage otherwise and is a powerful dueler with his new magnetic grenade. He has good range options and can bust tanks with his right click, and his role is good for creating or closing a small bit of space, but is also great due to its instant reload. His ultimate is slow and unlikely to get a kill without a Lucio or a perfect situation. Overall though, his dueling power makes him a decent carry, leaving him at the B tier despite his lack of sustain. Moving on up into the A tier, we have our first character, Echo. Echo has seen better days since Overwatch 1, but due to her powerful mobility and damage, she can still be a solid assassin. The sound in Overwatch 2 makes her difficult to hear when she gets the drop on people, and her ultimate is still solid. Even having a half HP second tank can prove to be extremely deadly, thus making her ult very strong still. The next DPS on our list is Tracer. Tracer's mobility makes her a lethal cleanup character. Her pulse bomb is good for turning or starting off fights, and she has enough self-sustain to be a really strong solo carry. Her damage leaves a little bit to be desired in Overwatch 2, as dueling is now much harder to do consistently due to the damage reduction. Still, all of her strengths make her a solid A tier pick. Our next A-lister is Hanzo. Hanzo is a sniper which naturally pushes him to the top of the solo carry list. A few choice headshots can turn an entire fight, and since he has a lot of spam potential, he can also deal with tanks quite well. The main issue with Hanzo is his susceptibility to divers and to various strong heroes right now, as well as his long range inconsistency, which does bump him down just a bit. The final A-list DPS we have is Ashe. Ashe deals significant damage, has a decent mobility tool, and a powerful ultimate to her name. She can absolutely carry fights with Bob by contesting points, which buys her time to do a lot of damage and secure picks. She is also a fine dueler with her dynamite, which she can use to pressure enemies out of positions. The one issue is that she can be pretty easy to kill for enemy snipers due to her very simple hitbox, which moves in very straight lines. She is pretty easy to headshot and doesn't one-shot with her own weapon, which brings her down to the A tier. Moving on into the S tier, we have Sombra. Sombra is pretty much the broken DPS this season due to her surprisingly fast charging EMP, which knocks out enemy health and abilities and secures a lot of one-team fights. Her ability to hack while invisible causes lots of strife from tank players, and the damage boost she receives on hacked targets makes her a very effective dueler. Being able to flank while totally invisible also makes her a constant pressure without the other team being able to mark and keep track of her. Hacking health packs also gives you sustained without needing to rely on your supports at all. She is overall an S tier solo carry. Next DPS on the list is Soldier 76. What Soldier lacks in pick potential, he makes up for vastly in mobility, self-sustain, and damage output. He's able to effectively poke out many tanks and keep himself up in many situations. His ultimate is also actually quite effective in Overwatch 2 for winning fights. His ability to constantly reposition makes him capable as a flanker, while his ability to deal sustained damage and heal himself makes him an effective main DPS, where you can sit behind your tank and still put out lots of damage. It is due to this versatility that he remains a solid S tier pick. Next on the S tier is Genji. Genji does get a bit more heal reliant than a lot of the DPSs in the S tier, but his blade and his great overall movement plus his deflect allows for him to stay alive through lots of damage without the heals. His ultimate is a massive fight winner in Overwatch 2, and his close range burst damage makes him a super effective dueler and assassin against a lot of the DPSs in the game. If you play a lot of ranked, it really should come as no surprise that Genji is a solid S tier pick. Possibly the second most powerful DPS on the list is Sojourn. Sojourn has an insane amount of damage pressure with her left click and has all the pick potential of any other sniper with her railgun. She charges her railgun off of shields, deployables, tanks, whatever can take damage, and then she can suddenly swing out and one-shot an enemy deep in the backline. She also has some of the best mobility in the game and an insanely powerful disruption ability that deals lots of damage and provides for slows, allowing for an even easier headshot with her railgun. She's heal dependent but does so much damage and has enough mobility to mostly not need it that much. The final DPS in our S tier is going to be Widowmaker. This can definitely vary on some maps, but Widow is pretty much a solo character overall. She benefits greatly from playing many steps behind her team and using them as a barrier between herself and the enemy. In the meantime, she uses the distance to land a steady stream of one-shot headshots from safety, where pretty much only some enemy snipers can even deal with her. On top of that, she can swing fights entirely by herself due to the rapid rate at which she can get picks. She is a solo carry beast, and the only limitation to her really is your own aim and positioning. The final role to cover on this tier list is going to be support. Sadly, in the D tier, we have Mercy. Mercy's solo carry potential is insanely limited. Yes, good Mercy players can carry lobbies, but the odds of you doing so when you're playing within your own skill tier is extremely low. You're going to mostly be limited to what your team is capable of, which can provide you ways to carry, but it's not a real solo carry hero in many ways. The rest of the supports are pretty decent in solo carry potential, so we actually end up moving past the C tier and into the B tier, with the first hero on the B tier being Brigitte. Brigitte is a pushing powerhouse, capable of healing for herself and putting ample pressure on many flankers at the same time. Her ultimate can translate to a lot of fight wins, and she is really good at keeping her teammates up in important situations. The problem is, while she is good at enabling her team and her ultimate can get a lot of fight wins, her damage is lacking pretty badly. This significantly reduces her solo carry potential, which leaves her our only support in the B tier. Moving up into the A tier, we first have Moira. Moira has a lot of healing, noticeable damage, and most importantly, lots of self-sustain. Her ultimate is actually pretty strong in Overwatch 1 for getting picks on the enemy backline and allowing for frequent pushes due to its fairly quick charge rate. Her fade allows her to escape being pushed, and her weird hitbox plus ability to heal herself with her orb permits her for a ton of solo self-peel. The second support on the A tier is Lucio. Lucio provides massive utility to his team with his speed boost and does a fair amount of damage. He has lots of mobility, and his ultimate allows for him to save his team from deadly ults such as Nanoblade, Dragons, or Graviton Surge. He doesn't heal that much, however, and his shots can be difficult to land at long range, which limits him on this list. The last support on the A tier is Baptiste. Baptiste is a solid support with lots of damage potential. His heals are great because they do an AoE burst, as does his shift. His ultimate is very strong, and of course, we cannot forget about Immortality Field, one of the most powerful abilities in all of Overwatch 2. He has some mobility with his upward jump, but it's not enough to effectively peel off divers. Furthermore, because of his heals being projectile, he tends to need to play closer to his team to land them regularly, which also sadly puts him in range of said divers, causing him to be just below S tier. First hero on the S tier is Ana. Ana has a ton of friendly healing, and with the new passive health regeneration, she can use her cooldowns much more aggressively. Her anti-grenade, which blocks all healing, is an incredibly powerful tool, letting her win 1v1s against enemies who have healers, or initiate easy pushes for her team to secure picks on enemies without any heals. Her sleep dart is also a powerful tool for the same situations, allowing her to sleep flankers to peel for herself, or even sleep enemies to put them in easy to kill positions. Her weapon also does 70 damage per shot with no fall off, which makes her an effective long range damage dealer for out of position DPSs. Her nano is a great ultimate all on its own, or combined with other ults like Dragon Blade, making it a steady way to get fight wins. Next hero on the S tier is going to be Kiriko. Kiriko is a beast, doing 120 damage on a headshot with no damage fall off, and having near auto aim heals, which are effective for healing even super mobile DPSs. Her teleport gives her a lot of escapability, and she has an AoE immortality ability that when timed correctly can bail herself and teammates out in a huge way. Her ultimate is even more powerful than Nano Boost and can easily win many fights when placed well. She is absolutely an S tier pick and will be in the meta for a while in her current state. Our last hero on the list is going to be Zenyatta. Zen is a complete monster. His Discord Orb provides a ton of extra damage to his team and forces enemy tanks to play much more slowly. His Harmony Orb allows him to heal very mobile DPSs due to its set it and forget it style. His ultimate is one of the best defensive ults in the game and can save any number of teammates from lethal damage. Finally, his damage is actually ridiculous. His right click allows allows him to be a better sniper than some snipers at times, and his left click proves to be very powerful against flankers. All of this combined with his new kick boop allows him to be an insanely effective dueler, put out a lot of damage, and be a clutch teammate. And with Zen, we have concluded our list of all the Overwatch heroes based on their solo carry potential. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. GameLeap is launching our website later this month, which will give you much more detailed information and supply you with all you need in order to hit GM. The content that you find there will 100% be better than anything you will find on YouTube, and you will get step-by-step guides on how to shatter the ranks with your favorite heroes. If you want half off, you can come pre-order your membership by clicking this link here.